Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025, and today's topic will be comics and drawing style. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day and I use timers to stay focused and to build a habit. So I'm going to start a 10-minute timer. So feel free to use these videos as something to sketch along with if you want. So this week I'm calling it a drawing comics deep dive, and I have a drawing comics playlist that will have all these videos in there. For the past couple of videos or days I've been working on this page. I'm going to continue doing that, and to begin with I'm just going to use a pencil. So a lot of times I sketch with pen without penciling it out, although I'm going to use a pencil and I like it. I mean, I think sometimes I like to sort of experiment or challenge myself, but it is helpful to basically to do the penciling of the comic page. So yeah, that's what I'll start off doing, and also kind of skip around and sort of talk about the style of it. Part of it is it's good sometimes to pencil. I worked on it for about an hour after yesterday's video. That's why I thought today I might talk about like the digital aspect of it. Like I'm gonna scan this in and I'll add some lettering and stuff like that. Again, this is just an experiment right now. I'm just prototyping. But I thought, one, I'm not quite at that stage where I'm doing that, and I'm still setting up my my computer like to do more artwork. But after yesterday's video, I was thinking it might seem like I'm saying like it's all about like being quick, such as going straight to like the inking or like working on a smaller page and then like doing stuff on the computer. And while it does make certain things, like it does help out in certain ways, like it still takes time to do a good drawing or like a good artwork or a comic page. So that's still going to take time. However, let's say you have to make some adjustments or like fix certain things. I mean, that's like what the computer is good for, is that kind of thing. But yeah, it's sometimes penciling is the best thing to do. And I think in general, like that's probably the best thing, is just to sketch it out. And the other thing is, like, let's say you're wanting to figure out like the layout or like the composition, then yeah, it's good to pencil it and then figure out how to ink it like after, because it's always better to have the drawing. But going back to the idea of style, I'm also figuring that out too. So for example, like that's what I did here. So in this panel, I just started sketching it in ink initially, and it wasn't really going to be a comic page. I just wanted to experiment with doing a comic page. In yesterday's video, I talked about how I'm not going to really try to make this look finished, but if it does look good, that's the thing. Like if it does actually look good, I'm not going to get rid of like the hand drawing or like what I have here. So what I mean is, like when I scan this in, which I know I'm going to do anyway, yeah, like if there's just some touch-ups, like I would do that. I would mostly do it by hand is what I mean. The other thing, speaking of that, so it's a good idea to get a hand mirror, check the composition to see if it's balanced, or like take a picture and flip it on the camera. Yeah, the other thing is just experimenting like with the styles. So this is a very like specific way that I'm doing this. This isn't, how would I say it, like particular way. I wouldn't call it like the mainstream or like even that traditional, other than the fact that I'm using like pen and ink or something like that. So I'm approaching it kind of in a different way, and plus it's also like I'm the one coming up with the story and like the artwork, and so that's also changes kind of like the process. Yeah, if I can like add detail, so I'm just switching between a medium and like a fine point pen. But yeah, if I can keep this look, then I'm going to. And not necessarily like erase this or anything. So you can get quite a lot of detail with just like a fine point. But yeah, that's the other thing with digital, is that like you can add, like I would just use it to kind of touch up, just personally. So yeah, that goes back to like that idea of style, where there's like an infinite amount of ways that you could decide to work on the comic. One thing though is sometimes, because it is a comic page and there's like a lot going on, it might be a little bit confusing, and it might be tempting to kind of skip like stages, but like I wouldn't. So for example, I still stick to like the idea of having a sketch. So for example, just you can use a pencil, and just having a sketch and a pencil like helps a lot. Obviously, it's because one, you can plan it out and then erase it. Yeah, you don't have to worry so much about messing up. And when you're doing so a lot of times when I'm just sketching for fun or just like studying or something like that, I'll just do it like with pen. And to me, like that's an enjoyable thing. But then like if I'm working on a comic, I might not do that all the time. But then again, this page kind of started that way, where I was just sort of doodling. So yeah. But if you do it this way, it's a little bit more forgiving, and you can work out like the design and the composition. And then you can always figure out how to ink it, like after you pencil it. The other thing about like style is I'm also figuring out how I want to do it, because there's not one way to do it, and the style, like the way you draw, is just as important to the comic. So it's really about figuring out how you want to do it and trusting that that's the way to draw the comic. So yeah, it takes time. So that's like my main, I think, message today, is that don't rush through it. Because like with yesterday's video, I thought, okay, well, maybe for today I'll scan some stuff in. Like, one, my digital workspace isn't set up for that. Two, the page itself still needed work. And in fact, just kind of going with like the 80-20 rule, which I brought up in another video earlier this week. I want 80% of it to be done like by hand, and then that 20% would just be stuff that makes sense to do digitally, and also touching up the artwork. And by what I mean by like making sense to do digitally is, if I'm the one writing and drawing the comic, I mean, I'm not gonna stress out so much about like where the word balloons go, and so I kind of have an idea of where they could go, and then on the computer it would be easier to like fix that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be very like particular to how I want to do it. The other thing I just wanted to go over was that, one, there's nothing wrong with penciling it in. Sometimes it might make it seem like I'm not like I don't want to do that or something, which isn't the case, but that's kind of what I mean by like particular, because some of it depends on my mood. Like I might not want to pencil it, and then like for example like this, like I don't know that I would just draw this if I hadn't started the way that I did. But then the other way is kind of like this. I don't know that I would have just gone in and just drawn like the character, because I don't really know what she looks like exactly, and because part of it is also character design. And same with this, I started off pretty loosely, but then now that I'm actually adding detail, like I'm looking up reference for cottages and stuff just to add like the little details. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over. I know that I've mentioned these videos aren't really my reason to finish my work. I did this page because it's not official. This is just kind of like a made up story, but I do have a story in this like world, and so this is part of like the concept art. If you are working on something kind of similar, then yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of sharing ideas and stuff. But yeah, it takes time, is kind of what I'm getting at, because this isn't like a character that's already been designed. It's not being done in like kind of a mainstream way where there's like a script and someone else is going to ink it and stuff like that. A lot of it is intuitive. That's part of developing the style of the story and of the world and of the artwork. So there's some things, for example, I didn't use pencil here, so I'm just not going to use pencil here. Although you could, I mean, if you're trying to figure out something, let's say I wanted to add something, and I wouldn't ink it until you felt good about inking it. I think this is probably the easier way, but I think it's also the like it's a good way to, sometimes you need it and sometimes you don't, like the penciling. Also, the other thing about style is kind of what I'm doing here, where even like the rendering is the style, like the pen is the style. So I was wanting to figure that out too, sort of how do I want to do this. And for me, like I just kind of like doing it this way, sort of sketchy, kind of crosshatch, just in general. And then, but even within the same comic, you can change it up. You could have more, you can kind of block out, and I kind of wanted, that's sort of why I'm doing it this way, penciling it. So you can decide, for example, that you want most of this in shadow. And so that would be a good idea to pencil or map like where the shadows are, and then just decide, okay, like you're gonna just ink this whole thing. Now you might still want to stick with like the crosshatch, and the thing with like being able to scan it in is, like with this one, I just kind of went in and just started like inking it, or yeah, like with a pen, drawing it. But I knew I could like touch it up if I needed to, but you're not really going to know until you kind of do it. So this is like a test, so it's kind of good to set up like a test, like a test page. And yeah, this wasn't really based on like a specific story. It's just kind of an experiment to see, one, like the style of it, like what could work. Because a lot of things could work. But so part of style is also your preference. It's what you think looks good, or part of it is what you think looks good, but also like what you're good at. That's the other thing too. Like I'm not good at like every art style. It's just there's like I have like my way of doing it. But yeah, I was gonna say just specifically like with, well, and I guess in general, like with like your body of work, it is personal, and it's as much about like what you prefer, but also what you are good at. Yeah. But ultimately it's about figuring out how you like to do the artwork. So for me, like I like doing it this way. It's kind of a mix of drawing, but like with painting ideas. So I'm sort of kind of painting with like the ink. But it also allows me to develop the picture in the way that I like, and sometimes I'll switch to like a thin pen. But also it has to do with having fun. I mean, exploring like these themes or topics, like whatever you find interesting, or like stories or characters. I'm gonna keep working on this and figuring out like the style that I want. But yeah, I want to thank you for joining me for today's daily sketching routine. Hopefully you come back. If you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.